Hello friends, Emmanuel Ogbechie here. I want to welcome you to a special presentation today on finding financial freedom. Now, if you've not read my book on the physics of money, you need to get your hands on that book. That book will change your financial life. And today I want to take an extract in talking to you about finding financial freedom. Have you ever thought about the fact that achieving financial freedom is possible? Well, that's the first step to finding financial freedom. You must believe in your mind and in your heart that financial freedom is possible, it's achievable, and it starts with believing that you can attain that end. Now, what is financial freedom? Now, financial freedom basically is the ability to meet all your financial needs without having to be stressed, pressured, or having to go through, periods of depression and unhappiness. Now, a lot of people today are confronted with challenges in their financial life, and these challenges have pushed them to the corner. And somehow there's been a rise of a sense of gloom when it relates to finances. But I want you to realize today that you can attain financial freedom. Now, that's the first step, because you see, a lot of times if you don't believe that something is possible, then you will not be able to move in the direction, in that direction. You have to believe first in your mind that you can attain financial freedom, regardless of what the circumstance may be right now or what the situation may be. You need to convince yourself that you can rise above where you are in your finances. Now, the second key to achieving financial freedom is that you need to decide that you're going to do something about moving from where you are financially to where you ought to be. Now, in my book on the physics of money, one of the important principles which we speak about is the fact that money moves. And obviously, you do know that reality. Money moves. The money that is in your hand right now is going to be moving to the next person beside you, moving to the stores, moving to the groceries, moving to all the things you spend money on. Money possesses the characteristics of motion. And because money possesses the characteristics of motion, it obeys all the laws of motion as described in physics by Isaac Newton. Now, Isaac Newton stated that every object remains in a state of rest or uniform motion except acted upon by an external force. Now, in financial terms, this means that your financial status will remain the way it is until you exact some force to move your financial standing from the level on which it is to the level you desire for it to be. Change financially doesn't just come to people just because they are broke or just because they need it. There must be an application of force. And we're going to talk to you about what kind of force we're talking about in order for you to be able to move your finances from where it is to the next level where it ought to be. Now, because money obeys Isaac Newton's laws of motion, money also obeys what we call the law of inertia. Now, in physics, every body, every object possesses what is called reluctance. An initial reluctance to move, initial reluctance to change. I mean, if you look at physical inanimate objects in your house, you're going to find out that there's a natural reluctance to move. You keep a table on the spot, that table is going to be there when you come back a week from today. Now, financially speaking, the same rule applies. Now, what will move the table, if you have a table in your house, from where it is, maybe to another point in your house, is if you go and carry that table. Or maybe there's a force that shakes the building that moves the table. Now, in financial terms, that's a law that the money that is not in your hands right now is not going to come into your hands just because you need the money. You must apply the requisite force needed to move that money. When we talk about force, in physics, we talk about potential. We talk about potential difference. And in financial terms, we speak about your capacity, your ability, the things that you have with which you can move the money that is not in your hands right now into your hands. But it starts with a quality decision. You need to make a decision that you're going to do something. You're not going to stay where you are. You're not going to lie down. You're going to do something. Now, regardless of what it is, the first step to finding financial freedom is deciding today that you must do something. Stop waiting. For instance, if you don't have a job and maybe you have applied for jobs and you've not gotten the job, stop sitting down at home just waiting endlessly. What if the job doesn't come 3 months from today? What if the job doesn't come 6 months? Or perhaps maybe you already on a particular level doing some kind of business and it's not going forward. You can't just sit there and expect change to come. You need to do something. You can't just sit there and wait for change to come. You need to do something to move yourself from the level on which you are to the next level. Now, the third important key I want to talk to you about in finding financial freedom is that you need to have a strategy. Now, if you have a strategy in any area of life, you automatically position yourself for success. In anything you do, you need to have a strategy for achieving your end objectives. And in financial terms, there must be a strategy. You can't just say, oh, well, I just wish I'm going to have a lot of money. Oh, I just wish my finances can change. You need to have a strategy. And I want to talk to 3 categories of people today. First of all, I want to talk to those of you who either, or maybe 4, I would say, those of you who are unemployed. If you don't have a job and you don't have a business, there's nothing you're doing. Now, you must understand that money moves. And what makes money move is the sales. Sales of goods, services, and time. Sales of legal goods, sales of legal services, and sales of time. Now, I'm qualifying the word legal goods and legal services because there are a lot of illegal things that people sell, and you don't want to be involved in that. You want to be involved in the sales of something legal. Now, that's how money moves. Now, you check it. The money you have right now will only move to the stores if you go and buy, let's say, a loaf of bread. Otherwise, the money is going to remain in your pocket. Now, if the people who are selling a loaf of bread do not have bread to sell, then your money will not move to them, especially, if you need bread. Now, that's the rule. Check it in every area of life. Money moves in response to products or services or time that people have to sell. Now, that's a very important point. So when we talk about, you not having the kind of finances your heart desires, you must understand that if you are the type who've been looking for a job, basically what you've been trying to sell is time. Everyone who works for a company is basically a time seller. If you're working for a company where they're paying you a salary, you report at work at 8 in the morning, you close at 5, you're technically selling about 9 hours of your time every day, 20 working days in a month, and then they pay you a salary at the end of the month. Now, you must understand that, you may be called a doctor, you may be called an accountant in that firm, you may be called an architect. As long as you're working in that company, the core product or commodity you're selling there is time. And for those of you who are looking for a job, basically what you're doing is that you're trying to find somebody who's going to buy time for you. That's what you mean when you say, I've applied for a job. Now, you're technically looking for a time buyer. And sometimes time buyers are scarce. Now, when there's a scarcity of time buyers, now that means people who want to employ you, they are time buyers. Now, when there's a scarcity of that, what happens is you could have a lot of time to sell and be sitting at home, with that time, which you have to sell and nobody's ready to buy it. And by the way, you must understand that time is one of the most common commodities. And when the commodity is very common, the price that people are willing to pay for it sometimes reduces to zero because of the availability of it. Everybody's got 24 hours every day, which they probably want to invest into a company in applying for a job in that company. So if you are in that space where you've been trying to sell your time and trying to get a job, and you've not been able to get a job, then you need to be financially intelligent. You must understand that what you really need is money, not a job. There are people who have jobs that the employers end up owing them salaries for 4 months. Of what use is that to you if you are in a company where they can pay you? So what you really need is money. And money does not move only through the sales of time. Money moves also through the sales of goods and sales of services. So if you've been trying to get a job and nobody has hired you, then you need to look at selling something else. Products, goods, services. You need to look at something else you can sell, because right now nobody's buying the product you're selling, which in your context is time. Now, financial intelligence is very important. You must understand that money moves through the sales of goods and services. And if you are in a terrain of business or in a field or a position where people are not willing to buy what you are selling, then it's only intelligent for you to decide to change your product line. So the first category of people I'm talking to right now are those of you who don't have a job and you are not into business. You're not selling anything. You're just at home waiting till you are employed. You're not being smart. You need to get up. You need to decide that money must move to you. Money moves, and the money that you need is ready to move to you. But you need to have a product. You need to have goods. You need to have services. You need to have something which you can trade in exchange for money, something legal. Now that's important. And so the first step is to have a strategy. So if you've looked around you and you can't find a job, then I want to encourage you to change what you are, your method. Start thinking about, what product can I start selling? What skill can I acquire to start making a product which people can buy? Or what service can I begin to render? Now, the interesting thing about service rendering is that most times the capital you need for service rendering is usually not as high as the capital you will need if you were to want to start a production of a product line. So you can look at what kind of service you can render. And you don't need to look too far. Look right where you are, within where you live, on your street. If you live in a complex, within your complex. Because the point is, the money you need is not far from you. It's actually in the pockets or wallets or bank accounts of your next door neighbors. The only issue is you don't know how to get it out of their wallet, out of their bank accounts, without having to beg or steal from them. Now that's where you need to build a strategy over. And part of how to build a financial strategy to move yourself from the place where you're unemployed and you don't have a job to a place where you're financially free is to explore your environment. Now, people who are into oil production know that before you start producing crude oil, the first thing you need to do is to explore. That's what is called exploration. So in exploration, you examine the environment to see how much of hydrocarbon deposit do you have in the environment, and what is the commercial value of the hydrocarbon. And after you have come up with your exploration report, you can decide to launch a production into crude oil production in such an environment. Now, the same thing it is with finances. You can explore your environment to see what are the opportunities that are in this place. What are the things that people need? What product can I launch? What service can I start rendering within the scope of where I am now? Now, that's very important, because you need to learn to start from where you are before you start thinking of going far away, of thinking of doing things on a bigger scale. You have to be willing to start small. Now, I believe your financial fortunes can change. And I believe that it starts with the determination. And I motivate you today to get up and do something to change your financial fortunes. You may have faced discouragement. You may have tried some things in the past that didn't work. But that's not a reason for you to give up. I encourage you, get up. Get up and try again. Get up and give it another go. Get up and switch your product line. Switch your service line. Get up and do something different. Who knows? That could be all you need to turn around your circumstance. Now, I'm going to be talking to you. Remember, I said I was going to talk to 4 categories of people. So I've just spoken to those of you today who are unemployed. Now, there are so many things you can learn from that if you're already employed. I mean, if you're already employed and the money you have is not enough to solve your problems, you are as good as the person who's not employed. The same thing it is. If you're running a business and you have given up and the money is not enough, you are also in the same space. or you probably are thinking of starting a business. So I'm going to be talking to the other categories of people, and I want you to make sure you follow this series as we look at finding financial freedom. Now, it is possible, and I believe you're next in line to find financial freedom. I encourage you today, get up and make the money that is not yet in your hand begin to move into your hands, applying Isaac Newton's laws of motion. Now, Emmanuel Ogbechie here. Remember, if you've not read my book on the physics of money, get your hands on that book, and it will help you turn around your finances. Till I come your way again, bye.